Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
When Lux arrived at the city of Krull, he didn't hesitate and led Aurora and Adeline directly to the royal palace. He didn't even bother entering through the main entrance. He simply smashed his fist on top of the palace, creating a hole that led directly to the throne room. King Avar didn't expect that someone would dare to act so boldly within his domain. However, the moment his gaze landed on the red-headed half-elf, a name that he didn't think he would say ever again escaped his lips. V. Vincent? King Avar muttered as his gaze landed on the half-elf's face. However, after observing the invader's face for nearly half a minute, he realized that the half-elf only shared similar features with his deceased brother who had died many years ago. It was at that moment that Aurora and Adeline descended from the hole on top of the ceiling, gently landing beside Lux. I see. King Avar narrowed his eyes. I understand now. This half-elf is that bastard's son. Since all three of you are here, is it safe to assume that Lennox, Hassan, and Kajus are already dead? They're not dead, Lux replied. At least not yet. The king snorted. Useless dogs. Lux arched an eyebrow as he looked at the arrogant king, who still looked calm while sitting on his throne. He thought that King Avar would panic and beg for his life the moment he became aware that his subordinates had failed to capture them. Adeline, I'm glad that you have decided to return to my kingdom. King Avar ignored the half-elf and shifted his attention to the beautiful elf, whom he had fallen in love with in the past. If you promise to become my woman, I will make you my queen. How about it? Dream on. Adeline replied hatefully. I'd rather die than let you have me. King Avar smirked before shifting his gaze to Aurora. How about you? King Avar asked. Would you like to be my queen? No, Aurora replied before walking toward Lux. I already have my king. The seductive beauty then hugged the half-elf from behind, pressing her body against him. Is that so? King Avar rested the side of his face over the palm of his hand. It seems that both of you have a good relationship with this half-elf. I wonder if both of you will beg to become my women after I torture him. Lux was genuinely surprised by the king's confident tone. It was as if he wasn't threatened by their sudden appearance. Do you know why Emperor Andreas, who is well known for his strong desire to expand his Vahan Empire, doesn't dare to send his army into our lands? King Avar asked in a teasing tone. I'm sure that you're going to tell me the answer very soon, Lux replied. Truth be told, he was also very curious as to why the Emperor of the Vahan Empire hadn't conquered the Finn Kingdom despite the fact that it only had 2 saints. The Skystead Alliance had several saints that could be mobilized at any given time. If they worked together, overpowering the protectors of the Finn Kingdom wasn't a big deal. The answer is because this kingdom has a supreme, King Avar sneered. A supreme that follows my every command. I see. So that is the case. Lux nodded his head in understanding. Earlier, Lennox said that only the bloodline of the royal family could rule the Finn Kingdom. Now, he knew why Lennox hadn't usurped King Avar and was satisfied with his position as a mere underling. He also understood why the king could still act confident and arrogant in front of him. Having a supreme was indeed a good reason to act confident. However, even if King Avar could act arrogant towards other people because of his strong subordinate, his arrogance only looked comical in Lux's eyes. Yes, that is the case. King Avar had a smug look on his face as he gazed at Adeline and Aurora. Both of you still have a chance to become my women. If you do, I promise to keep this half-elf alive. What do you say? Adeline suddenly felt anxious after hearing the king's words. She knew that Lux had several saints as his subordinates, but a supreme could easily fight multiple saints at once. Lux smirked before snapping his fingers. Dozens of Doom Knight gangbangers materialized in front of him and charged towards the king with their swords raised high. The half-elf wanted to check if King Avon was just spouting *T. If he was telling the truth, then his soldiers would be killed easily. If not, then the king would personally experience what it felt like to have his back door opened up. When the skeleton gangbangers were only a few meters away from the king, all of them were cut into dozens of pieces. The golden statue, which was holding a sword, Behind the throne opened its eyes and glared at the people who had tried to kill the current king. Interesting, Lux said as he eyed the golden statue, which stood 6 meters tall with great interest. Kill him, King Avar ordered, and the golden statue leapt towards Lux with its sword poised to strike. Lux didn't move from his spot. Instead of dodging the golden statue's strike, he only opened his mouth and gave an order. Kneel. King Avar sneered after hearing Lux's words. Only the rightful king of the Finn royal family could command the golem, so he watched with anticipation as the golem swung its sword to slice the half-elf apart. However, the blade's strike paused midway, as if the golden statue was bound by invisible strings. The golden statue struggled as if it was trying to break free from something, but even after 2 minutes passed, it still retained its position of slashing mid-strike. What have you done? King Avar, who was feeling very confident earlier, couldn't help but stutter after seeing the golden statue stop moving. What did you do to our kingdom's guardian? Oh, I was just trying my luck to see if it was going to listen to me. Or not, Lux replied. It seems that I can't fully wrest its control from you, since you are currently the king of this kingdom. Even so, it also recognized my potential, so it is hesitant to follow your orders to kill me. If Adeline was still doubting Lux's identity earlier, now, she was certain of who he was. She then walked towards the half-elf and gave him a tight hug, pulling him close to her. Lux didn't resist and allowed Adeline to do what she wanted. Come forth, Lux ordered as he summoned a dozen Doom Knight gangbangers with a devilish smile on his face. The dozen knights, who were clad in black armor, looked at Lux in unison, waiting for his orders. Go, Lux ordered. It's gangbang time. The skeletons then charged at King Avar with sneers on their faces. Since their master ordered a gangbang, they would give the king a gangbang. Kill these things, King Avar ordered. Protect me. The king's voice became high-pitched as he ordered the golden statue to protect him. However, the golden statue didn't listen to him and remained where it was as if it didn't hear the king's words. As the guardian of the Finn kingdom, it had seen the horrible things that King Avar had done to his people. However, despite being strong, he was powerless to stop him. It was a creature created by the founder of the Finn kingdom, and he was made for one purpose only. It was to follow the orders of its creator's bloodline. This was the first time that it moved after many years of standing in the throne room. If possible, it didn't want to serve King Avar, but since he possessed his creator's bloodline, it was duty-bound to obey his orders. But when Lux commanded it to kneel, the golden statue felt the bloodline of its creator inside Lux's body. Although it was faint, the bloodline was still there, which gave the half-elf the right to command it. Seeing that there was someone who was a better fit to rule the Finn kingdom, the golden statue decided to override King Avar's order, stopping its killing blow mid-strike. However, since the crown of the kingdom was resting on King Avar's head, it couldn't betray him either. Because of this, the golden statue did the only thing that it could do, and that was to temporarily ignore any order given to it. It had no intention of getting into the fight between Lux and the king and planned to simply wait until their face-off was over. King Avar's hateful cries of pain, anger, frustration, and disbelief echoed inside the throne room as the Doom Knight gangbangers followed their master's orders. Lux had already pulled Aurora and Adeline away. He simply couldn't allow them to witness such a gruesome scene. Even Adeline, who hated King Avar to the bones, didn't have the courage to look at what was happening behind her. She simply allowed Lux to drag her away while listening to the king's screams, which was like music to her ears. A day after Lux dealt with King Avar, the citizens of the capital city gathered at the plaza. There, they saw several familiar figures, tied to the poles that jutted out of the ground. At the very center, the king of Finn Kingdom, King Avar, was tied up with magical chains, preventing him from using any skills or abilities to escape. The chains also lowered his rank and made him only as strong as a grade A apostle. Tied up on 2 poles beside him were the 2 saints of the kingdom, Lennox and Hassan. Just like the king, the 2 were also tied up with magical chains. The arrogance these 3 people used to have was nowhere to be seen. Lux and Asmodeus made sure that they wouldn't be able to act tough in front of them ever again. King Avar was gangbanged by the Doom Knight gangbangers, while his two lackeys were gangbanged by satyrs. Lightnovel, all of them now understood that in front of the creatures that specialized in gangbangs, their dignity was meaningless. Clearly, Lux not only wanted to avenge Adeline, but he also wanted to humiliate them in the most degrading ways possible. Standing beside Lux was the satyr, Ampelos, who had disguised himself as a human, with his arms crossed over his chest. Behind him were the other high-ranking satyrs whom Lux had summoned from his guild headquarters and were responsible for making the two saints understand that there were fates worse than death. They put up a good fight, but in the end, they spread their legs like whores. Ampelos sneered. I didn't think that I'd enjoy torturing men, but I might get addicted to this, if you know what I mean. The corner of Lux's lips curled up into a smile after hearing Ampelos' words. A single glance was enough to tell him that the satyrs had completely broken the wills of the two saints. In the past, they might have schemed to find ways in order to escape. But after Ampelos told them that even if they managed to escape, Lux would easily capture them back, their wills weakened. Perhaps it was also because he threatened the two saints that if they made such an attempt, he and his satyrs would make them understand what it meant to be screwed 10 times over, and that it would make what they had been through a day ago look like child's play. Not wanting to suffer worse than they already did, the two saints became more obedient and allowed themselves to be chained and tied to the poles in the plaza. Kejus, and the other corrupt nobles of the Finn kingdom, were tied up as well. After Asmodeus started his investigation, he didn't stop with just investigating the king and his two sidekick saints. He also investigated the nobles who were on good terms with the king and happily dragged those whose corruption knew no bounds to the capital city so that they would also be punished for their crimes. In short, the Lich King was already paving the way for his master to rule over the Finn kingdom by eliminating the people who might hinder him, since he was one of the very few potential candidates to become the next king. Of course, Asmodeus knew that his master didn't really desire to be tied down to one place. But now that his biological father was tucked inside Blackfire, it was only a matter of time before their family regained control of the Finn kingdom. Standing before you is King Avar and his lackeys. Asmodeus addressed the people who were all gathered in the plaza. All of them have committed many crimes, affecting most of you. Yet, because of their strength and authority, the majority of you could only bow your heads and grovel at their feet. However, all their misdeeds will end here today. But before that, in order to vent out your frustrations, especially those who have been wronged by these people in the past, I will give you an opportunity to exact punishment over them. The Lich King then snapped his fingers, making countless stones drop in the plaza, surprising everyone. These stones are special stones, imbued with the power of the abyss, Asmodeus explained. Even saints will feel pain if they get hit by these stones. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get revenge on these bastards who made your lives a living hell. So, those who want to punish them, step forward. Of course, Asmodeus had already placed the people who had been wronged by the king, the two saints, the high-rankers, and the nobles at the very front. These were the people who wanted nothing more than to rip the king and his lackeys to shreds, making them the ideal people to punish the criminals in front of them. Lux, Aurora, and Adeline were seated on an elevated platform, giving them a good view of the surroundings. But Adeline stood up from her seat and jumped to the front of the masses to pick up a stone as well. Clearly, she also wanted to personally deal with the people who took away her happiness. Lux had no significant reaction, already anticipating this to happen. I hope she holds back and does not kill them instantly, Lux thought. Adeline was a ranker, so even throwing a rock at someone could deal serious damage to them. Fortunately, the beautiful elf was still thinking properly and lowered her strength to that of an apostle. She didn't want to give King Avar and his lackeys an easy way out, and she had every intention of making them feel the pain that she had suffered for many years. Ready? Asmodeus raised his hand. Open fire. As soon as the Lich King gave the signal to start, countless stones flew towards the people who were tied up on the poles of the plaza. At first, King Avar, Lennox, Hassan, and the high-rankers thought that these stones wouldn't deal much damage to them. However, they were wrong. Very wrong. The stones were imbued by Lux's divine abyssal touch. Although it wouldn't deal much physical damage against high rankers and saints, it dealt great damage spiritually, making them feel as if their souls were being pricked by countless needles. Stop! 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 King Avar shouted. I am your king. You can't do this to me. You can't do this to Amak. Adeline threw her rock towards King Avar's mouth, breaking a few of his teeth in the process. A sneer was plastered on the beautiful elf's face as she continued to hurl one rock after another. Lennox, Hassan, the high rankers, and the nobles weren't faring any better. All of them were in so much pain to the point that some of them fainted. However, even if they fainted, a soul-rending pain would wake them up instantly, making them howl and scream, begging for forgiveness. Why are you so quiet? Lux asked the ghost who was hovering a meter outside Blackfire. Are you not entertained? Vincent's ghost, who was usually very talkative, looked at this scene without saying a word. It is indeed entertaining, Vincent said without averting his gaze from his half-brother, who was being targeted by Adeline. But seeing this scene, I can't help but feel sad. I wish things could have been different. I had no desire for the throne, and I simply wanted to live a peaceful life with Adeline. But that dream was snatched away from me by my own family, who even waited until my father drew his last breath before revealing his true colors. If only I knew that things would end up this way, I would have killed him before he even got the chance to do what he did. Perhaps this is one of the reasons why I refused to cross over to the other side. As long as Avar lived, I wouldn't be able to rest easily, knowing that Adeline was bearing my child and had to live on her own. Lux listened to Vincent's explanation from start to finish. What surprised him was that he didn't feel any shred or hint of killing intent coming from his biological father. Only sadness and regret could be heard in his voice, making Lux wonder about what could have happened if things had happened differently. In the end, he decided to just sigh because things had already happened. It also crossed his mind that he wouldn't have possessed Adeline's baby if things happened differently. He suddenly wondered if his soul would have ceased to exist if he hadn't found a suitable vessel after his long journey to Solais. Perhaps sensing his discomfort, Aurora reached out to hold his hand, giving it a light squeeze. Her affectionate gaze made Lux very thankful that he was able to survive that long and perilous journey that almost caused his entire existence to cease to exist. Lux then patted his lap, giving Aurora an invitation to sit on it. The beautiful lady agreed and sat on her lover's lap. She then rested her head on his shoulder and closed her eyes as the handsome half-elf wrapped his arms around her. Lux then shifted his attention back to the King of Avar, whose face was already bruised and bloody from the countless stones that had been thrown in his direction. He knew that the king wouldn't die from this, because he promised Adeline that the one who would take King Avar's life would be her. This was the only way for the heart demon in his mother's heart to disappear, and allow her to once again embrace the happiness that she had lost long ago. Please, spare me, King Avar pleaded. I promise to Refo, KHH. Adeline swung her sword, cutting the king's head from his body. From start to finish, there was not a single hint of mercy in her beautiful green eyes. Sparing you is akin to letting more innocents suffer, Adeline said in a voice filled with killing intent. You don't deserve any mercy from me. Without another word, she raised her foot and crushed the head, turning it into meat paste. Lennox, Hassan, Kajus, the high rankers, as well as the nobles, looked at her in horror, fearing that she might kill them next. As if understanding their thoughts, the beautiful elf glanced in their direction and smiled sweetly, causing their restricted bodies to shudder uncontrollably. Lux had no intention of reanimating King Avar's soul, and Blackfire shared the same sentiment. Both of them had standards, and they didn't want to add a weakling to their ranks. Asmodeus chuckled as he grabbed King Avar's soul with his right hand. He then coated the soul with his necrotic power and hurled it towards the sky. The Lich King didn't want to see King Avar ever again, so he decided to directly send the soul to the cycle of reincarnation to be reborn as a pig who would be slaughtered after it was fattened up by its owners. All the prisoners had been greatly weakened, and their souls were very unstable. Even the two saints felt like Ch*t, and were barely able to keep their eyes open from the pain and exhaustion. "Do you want to deal with the others, Lady Adeline?" Asmodeus asked in a respectful tone. "No, Asmodeus," Adeline replied. "I promised Lux that I would only kill King Avar. As for the rest, I will let him decide what to do with them." The Lich King bowed his head respectfully. "Understood, Lady Adeline. I will handle things from here." Adeline nodded and left without a second glance at the people behind her. Asmodeus then glanced at his prisoners, making them all flinch. He then summoned a dozen Doom Knight gangbangers and ordered them to take Lennox, Hassan, and Kajus to different rooms. 2 were saints, and the last one was a pseudo-saint. At the end of the day, they were still useful, so Blackfire called dibs on them. Of course, the Black Coffin wasn't in a hurry to absorb them since Ampelos had nicely asked for one more day to enjoy the prisoners. Since Blackfire was an understanding and compassionate coffin, it nodded its head and even told Ampelos to enjoy his last day with the saints, who would soon become its new lackeys. In the past, it would have been thrilled to capture saints and devour them without thinking twice. But now, Blackfire was only thrilled if it was devouring supremes, calamities, and demigods. It was even paying close attention to Eiko in the Ford Federation, who was currently singing at the top of her ship, Poseidon, while her pirate crew decimated those who opposed their Boom Boom Princess authority. Blackfire loved the baby slime so much, especially after she gave him 3 supremes and dozens of saints, as she continued her conquest to make the Ford Federation her domain. Although it wasn't certain, it felt that the baby slime also intended to visit the other island nations surrounding the Federation. As to what Eiko planned to do there, the Black Coffin had no idea. Asmodeus summoned another batch of Doom Knight gangbangers and looked at the high-rankers and the nobles of the Finn Kingdom with a devilish smile on his face. "My master said that I can do whatever I want with all of you. Since you lots of screwed people over, I guess it is only natural that you get screwed in return," Asmodeus smirked. "May all of you have an enjoyable and unforgettable night." The Lich King left the room knowing that when morning came, the people inside it would be completely broken for good. Now that all the pests had been taken care of, it was time for them to visit the rest of the royal family. King Avar had 6 sons and 3 daughters. The king also had a dozen wives and concubines, some of whom had been forcibly taken from their families after they accidentally caught his fancy. Others were offered by the nobles who wanted to form a good relationship with their king, who were just as corrupt. To Asmodeus' surprise, King Avar's children hated their father to the bone. He ruled without designating a queen and treated all of his women, including his wives, as mere tools to give birth to his children. This caused the ladies to resent him, telling their children that they mustn't follow in his footsteps. Lux didn't know how to deal with them either, but he ordered Asmodeus to not hurt them since they were also victims of the king, who was now on his way to be reborn as a pig in his next life. The half-elf was the Necromancer of heaven, making Asmodeus the same. He was his lord's equal, so any powers that Lux gained, he had them as well. Lux knew that he had the power to change the fate of a soul, giving him the power to dictate what they would become in their next life. However, the half-elf didn't want to meddle with the natural flow of the cycle of reincarnation because he didn't want to play God. Asmodeus, on the other hand, was not as kind as Lux. He was willing to play the role of a villain for the sake of his master. Also, the Lich King was also thinking of expanding the Finn Kingdom and annexing the Vahan Empire, which had made things difficult for his master in the past. Of course, he wouldn't really do such a thing until Lux approved of it. Now, who should I choose as the temporary steward for this kingdom? Asmodeus thought as he reappeared in the throne room of the royal palace. Should I pick one of the princes? Or one of the princesses? The Lich King looked at the golden statue, which had returned to its original position right behind the king's throne. This golden statue was the guardian of the Finn Kingdom, and it had the rank of a supreme. It was what prevented the Vahan Empire from conquering these lands. Asmodeus also knew that the stone giant would have to recognize the temporary ruler of the kingdom before they could actually rule on behalf of his master. Too bad that one of the requirements is to have the bloodline of the royal family, Asmodeus sighed in his heart. If it weren't for that condition, I would have just picked a random beggar on the street and made him king. Those types of people are easier to control. After giving it some thought, Asmodeus decided to compromise and choose King Avar's second daughter to become the steward of the kingdom while Vincent's soul was still recuperating inside Blackfire. He had personally interviewed Ivar's children, and his second daughter was the one that held the most potential to govern a kingdom. After making his decision, the Lich King disappeared from the throne room and reappeared beside his master to discuss with him the arrangement he planned for the Finn kingdom, which was now under the half-elf's complete control. Lux found himself being hugged by two beautiful ladies the moment he opened his eyes. This wasn't the first time he had experienced something like this, since his lovers would often do this to him, especially Iris and Kai. However, this time, it was different. A young lady with pink hair was hugging him on his left, while a beautiful elf was hugging him on his right. As Lux tried to recall how he ended up in this situation, he remembered that after he ordered Asmodeus to handle the aftermath of the king's execution, Adeline had asked if she could sleep beside him that night. Perhaps, knowing that his biological mother didn't want to be alone after killing King Avar, Lux agreed to her request. But he didn't expect Aurora to sneak into his bed as well. Of course, he had no complaints. However, he wished that the two ladies didn't hug him so tightly like he was a hug pillow that he couldn't even break free from their hold. A sigh escaped Lux's lips as he decided to stay put for a while until one of the ladies beside him woke up. He could already imagine his biological father, Vincent, complaining like mad if he were to see his wife hugging a man aside from him, even if Lux was his own son. While waiting for the two girls to wake up, Lux received a message from his other lovers, asking him how things turned out in the Finn kingdom. Due to the difference in time zones, Valerie, Aurelia, Ollie, and Ari were the only ones awake at the moment. "How is mother-in-law?" Valerie asked. "Is she taking things well?" The dragon princess had already started calling Adeline mother-in-law, which made the half-elf smile. Of course, Ollie and Ari jumped on the mother-in-law bandwagon as well, making him feel ticklish inside. "Lux, make sure to let mother-in-law visit your guild headquarters after you are finished with your business in the Finn kingdom," Aurelia said. "I want to meet her too. I will also try to sneak away from the palace in order to meet her," Valerie stated. Ari, you need to help me make this happen, so we can meet our mother-in-law." "Don't worry, Valerie," Ari replied. "We'll meet her no matter what. The two of you, just don't do anything reckless, okay?" Ali commented. "We should also think of what gifts to give our mother-in-law when we see her." Lux smiled after hearing Ali's thoughtful comment. As expected of my Ali, Lux thought. She is the voice of reason in their group. Although the half-elf had recognized Adeline as his mother, Lux would still not change his feelings for Ali, who had first shown him unconditional trust and love. The beautiful handmaiden had very strong maternal instincts, allowing the half-elf to enjoy the care that he hadn't felt in either of his lifetimes. He was also looking forward to how Adeline would react after meeting his lovers, which should be happening very soon. But before that, he planned to let the beautiful elf meet his grandma first. Vera was the one who raised Lux since he was a baby, and he was certain that Adeline would want to hear stories about him growing up. He owed so much to his grandma, who had picked him up from the river and saved him from the giant crocodiles who almost ate him as a snack. Perhaps, hearing the ladies talk inside her head, Aurora's eyes fluttered open and looked around her in a daze. When her gaze landed on Lux, she didn't hesitate to kiss his cheek, despite still being half asleep. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Lux said before kissing his lover's forehead. Aurora smiled before hugging her lover once more, which made the half-elf blink his eyes in confusion. He was hoping that either Aurora or Adeline would wake up so that he could finally get out of bed, but it seemed that the pink-haired beauty wanted to stay in the bed for a bit longer. 15 more minutes, Aurora said through their guild chat as she hugged Lux happily. "I want to stay like this a little longer." Valerie, Aurelia, Ollie, and Ari, who heard Aurora's words, couldn't help but shake their heads helplessly. They knew that their soon-to-be sister was still a maiden, and all of them were wondering why Lux still hadn't embraced her yet. "Aurora, what is mother-in-law like?" Ari asked. "She's kind, caring, sweet, and beautiful," Aurora replied. "Also, she's currently hugging Lux beside me. I'll be honest. If she stood side by side with us, she wouldn't look out of place with how young she looks. I want to meet her soon, Ari commented. Oh, before I forget, can you ask her later what kind of food she likes eating? I plan to cook her something good. Understood, Aurora replied. Lux, on the other hand, arched an eyebrow. You can cook? Well, I'm not as good as Ali, but I can do it if I try, Ari replied. Did you forget? I cooked soup for you after we made love. Right. Lux nodded. That was good. I think my mother would like that. Really? Then I'll make some when we visit you in the guild headquarters to meet our mother-in-law. I look forward to it. Half an hour later, Adeline finally woke up, and Lux could now stretch his body after being hugged all night. After washing their faces, they all went down to the dining hall to eat. Asmodeus was already there, waiting for them, and gave his master a brief report on what he had arranged for the Finn Kingdom. Lux listened as he handled his personal matters. The one who will be taking over the throne will be Princess Camellia, Asmodeus stated. She just turned 17, but I believe that she will be a good steward for this kingdom. It will be best if we leave Scarlet and Sid to guard her. I will also ask a few succubi who know how to manage a territory to assist her. As long as they are around her, we won't have to worry about outside forces trying to seduce her to betray you, Master. Lux nodded. Great work, Asmodeus. I will meet with Camellia later. After that, I will be going back to Wildguard Stronghold with Mother and Aurora. I will leave you here for the time being to finalize things. Understood. Asmodeus nodded. An hour later, Lux met Camellia in the throne room and told her to manage the kingdom as a proper steward. The half-elf promised her that if she did a good job while he was away, he would permanently make her the prime minister of his kingdom, giving her powers second only to him. Princess Camellia nodded her head in understanding. I will not betray your trust, cousin. I hope so, Lux replied, because you should already know what I might do to you if you betray me. Despite successfully keeping the calm expression on her face from breaking, Princess Camellia wasn't able to stop her body from shuddering after hearing Lux's subtle threat. She had seen how the half-elf had dealt with her father and those who had been close to the latter, so she clearly understood that betraying Lux was a very stupid thing to do. The only way out for her and her family was to obey him and ensure that the Finn Kingdom would prosper under her management. Seeing that the princess understood what he wanted from her, the half-elf nodded his head in satisfaction. He liked how Princess Camellia carried herself, so he was more assured that his family's kingdom was in good hands. After that short meeting, Lux took Aurora and Adeline back to Solais so that the beautiful elf could meet his grandma. Little did he know that Emperor Andreas of the Vahan Empire was feeling very anxious about the possibility that the half-elf would attack his empire. Emperor Andreas knew that he had treated the half-elf badly in the past, and he was certain that Lux carried a grudge against him. This was why when his spies mentioned that the red-headed teenager had left the Finn Kingdom to return to Solais, the Emperor was finally able to sigh in relief. However, he couldn't risk the possibility that the half-elf would point his sword in his direction, so the Emperor called for an emergency meeting. He gathered his ministers and trusted advisors in order to talk about the gifts that they would send to the Finn Kingdom as a way to appease the half-elf for the scheme that he had devised against Lux in the past. Adeline was feeling incredibly anxious as she followed Lux to the teleportation gate that would send them back to Solais. Although her son had said that his grandmother was a very kind and caring person, the beautiful elf was afraid of meeting Vera. The reason? She was afraid that Lux's grandmother would judge her for allowing her child to be placed in a basket and sent adrift to a river. Everyone thought that the baby was dead, so they decided to send him off on his final journey towards the afterlife. Of course, Adeline didn't want to send her baby away, and she even had to be put to sleep to prevent the scenario of her jumping into the river to reclaim her child who was being carried away from her side by the river. It's going to be fine, Lux said as he held his mother's hand. It is all in the past, and Grandma will not hold it against you, Mother. Are you sure? Sure. Adeline asked in a worried tone. What if she hates me instead for abandoning you? She won't. What makes you so certain? Lux smiled and faced his mother, whom he had met just a few days ago. It's because she's my grandma, Lux said with confidence. If things didn't happen the way they did, we wouldn't have met, and I wouldn't have been here today. So, be brave, mother. Let's go meet Grandma. The half-elf knew that the sooner Adeline met Grandma Vera, the sooner the two of them could form a good relationship with each other. What Adeline didn't know was that Lux had already given Vera a heads up about their arrival. He had also explained to his grandma that the only reason why he was abandoned in the river by his birth mother was because she and the elves of Ash and Theas thought that he was dead. While Vera had her reservations, she, too, wanted to meet Adeline, who had given birth to Lux. Although the reason she had met her grandson was due to Adeline's loss, she was still thankful that it happened because Lux had brought many surprises into her life. A few minutes later, Lux, Aurora, and Adeline appeared in the training room of the half-elf's house in Wildguard Stronghold. As soon as they arrived, the beautiful elf saw a lady with long silver hair, and her eyes were locked onto her body. A saintess! Adeline's heart almost leaped out of her chest the moment she discerned Vera's rank. "We're back, Grandma," Lux said with a smile. "Welcome back, Lux." "You too, Aurora," Vera smiled at the two teenagers before shifting her gaze to Adeline. "You must be Adeline. I have already heard a few things about you from my grandson. Why don't we all go to the living room to have some refreshments first?" Vera made a gesture, and everyone followed behind her. For Adeline, walking behind the saintess was similar to walking behind an executioner who would chop off her head in a few minutes. If not for the fact that Lux was firmly holding her hand, she might have already escaped and left Wildguard Stronghold as fast as she could. Unfortunately, she couldn't do that, so she accepted her fate and followed behind Vera, who had already prepared for their arrival. A few sweet cakes were on the table, accompanied by glasses of fruit juice. Adeline found herself sitting between Aurora and Lux. This sitting arrangement reduced the anxiety in her heart, since the two teenagers were right beside her, acting as her pillars of support. "Let me introduce myself first," Vera said with a smile. "I am Vera von Kaiser, Lux's grandmother. Just call me Vera." "Nice to meet you," Adeline nodded. "My name is Adeline Farron Azariah. I also go by the name Adeline Farron Finn. Just call me Adeline." Vera could tell that Adeline was feeling anxious, and she had a feeling that it was because of the guilt of abandoning her son to the river. Lux's grandma gave her grandson a sidelong glance and saw him smiling at her. This was enough to tell Vera that the half-elf was not holding a grudge against his birth mother, so she decided to no longer dwell on the reason he was abandoned in the past. "Do you want to know more about Lux's childhood?" Vera asked.
Yes.
Adeline answered in a heartbeat, almost shouting her reply. Realizing her mistake, she hurriedly apologized and bowed her head. "Don't be so anxious," Vera stated. "Relax. I don't bite. Since you are already here, it means that my grandson has already recognized you as his mother. But before I tell you about Lux's childhood, can you tell me why I found him floating in the river?" Although Lux had already explained how he ended up adrift on the river when he was a baby, Vera wanted to hear it directly from Adeline's mouth. She could tell that Adeline wasn't someone who would abandon her child without a proper reason, and Vera wanted her to confirm the things that Lux had told her about his mother. "I know that you might not believe me, but Lux died shortly after I gave birth to him," Adeline stated. "The healers of the clan tried to revive him, but after half a day of trying, all of them finally gave up." Adeline's eyes turned moist as she remembered holding her dead baby in her arms. Instead of feeling his warmth, the only thing she felt back then was coldness that permeated her heart. Tears were already falling from Adeline's eyes by this point, and she was finding it hard to continue talking. Even so, she persevered until the very end and told Vera how she parted with the child, whom she planned to love with everything she had. How she kissed Lux's forehead before placing him in the basket. How she wrote his name on a tablet and placed it inside his basket as the last gift that she could give him. Vera listened from start to finish as Adeline shared her tale. After sharing her story, Adeline finally broke down and buried her head in Lux's chest. The half-elf didn't hesitate to hug his mother to provide her with the support she needed in order to regain her composure. Vera watched this scene and sighed in her heart. If earlier, she still had doubts that Adeline had abandoned her child due to selfish reasons, now, she was convinced that she wasn't that kind of woman. Lux being alive after being confirmed dead was nothing but a miracle. Since it was a miracle, Vera had no intention of finding fault with what had happened in the past. However, she couldn't stop herself from looking at the beautiful elf with pity, for she missed the chance to see her son grow up and share the happiness and sadness that went along with it. Lux lay on the grass and looked up at the clouds, watching them slowly pass in the sky. It had been a while since he had done something like this due to how busy he had been for the past few months of his life. Things were happening one after the other, and he didn't really have the time to take it easy. After things passed and he wasn't doing anything, he mostly spent his time with his lovers, strengthening the bonds they shared together. He never had any alone time with just himself. He didn't have the leisure to become carefree and not mind the things happening around him. The only reason why he was finally alone now was because he escaped from his grandma's house. Adeline wanted to know more things about Lux, and Vera was more than happy to tell his mother everything that had happened since he was a baby. Of course, his grandma didn't hold back a bit and also told his mother and Aurora about his embarrassing moments. Knowing that he was powerless to stop it, Lux fled the house. The giggles of the ladies, as well as their affectionate gazes, made his cheeks burn in embarrassment. "I miss Aiko," Lux muttered as he closed his eyes. "I just hope she's not throwing nukes wherever she may be." Somewhere in the Ford Federation, achoo. Aiko sneezed, and Fei wiped her nose with the table napkin beside them. Currently, the two baby slimes were eating in the dining hall of the battleship, Poseidon. The Boom Boom pirate crew had successfully subjugated all oppositions and was now dealing with the aftermath of their conquest. Captain Jack Spawow had become the baby slime's representative. Now, the pirate captain was hard at work, reforming the laws of the Ford Federation to ensure that all of the citizens would be able to live comfortable lives that were free from oppression. The members of the great families and the prestigious families were forced to sign a soul contract, preventing them from committing rebellion and hampering the growth of the Ford Federation. Most of their treasures were seized, and they were only left with enough gold to sustain themselves for a year. If they wanted to survive, they would have to work hard like the rest of the citizens and contribute to the prosperity of the Federation. Now that she had gained the power to protect herself, Aiko was thinking of doing the one thing that she had long wanted to do. However, she decided to put this on hold for a few more days, until the territories that were now under her command stabilized. For the time being, she just munched on some cookies while looking at the map of the Seven Seas laid on top of the table. The Ford Federation was only one of the major powers within the vastness of the open sea. There were still other factions stronger than it. As for those with the same level of strength, they were currently holding a high-level meeting due to the reports from their spies in the Federation. Although none of them believed it at first, it became hard to ignore when the reports of the spies from the other factions were saying the same thing. Since that was the case, it only meant one thing. All of them were telling the truth. And this truth was something that none of these powerful factions had expected to happen to one of their rivals in the Seven Seas. For the time being, they were trying to understand if the pirate princess of the Boom Boom pirate crew had the intention to cross into their domain and expand her territory. If that were the case, they would have no choice but to ready their fleets to fight in a battle that would be written in the history books for years to come. Back in Solais, Lux, who missed his baby slime, sighed in his heart. "Kids grow up so fast nowadays," Lux muttered. "I wonder, are Valerie and Aurelia already pregnant with my child?" Among his lovers, the only time he took the ring called everlasting off of his hand was when he made love to the two dragon princesses. Although he felt guilty for not letting Iris and Kai give birth to his children first, he also knew that the fate of Solais wasn't secure at the moment. Perhaps the reason why he allowed Valerie and Aurelia to have the chance to give birth to his children was because both of them belonged to the two most powerful kingdoms in Elysium. Unlike Solais, which was on the verge of destruction, Elysium was more stable. He would not have to worry that his children might grow up in a world that was about to disappear in a few years. Of course, Lux would do his best to prevent this from happening. But finding the Pillars of Eternity wasn't an easy thing to accomplish. /in PSSSD. Your daughter already has one. Still, they also mentioned that dragons don't give birth easily, Lux thought. This is why their numbers aren't that many. Also, can they give birth to my child even though I'm a half-elf? Lux pondered for a bit before scratching his head. I have dragon blood in my body, and my body constitution is called Immortal Dragon Conqueror's Legacy, Lux mused. That should be enough to give them a chance to become pregnant, right? Technically, even if dragons mated with humans in their humanoid forms, that didn't guarantee any chances of offspring. Their races were simply too different, and dragons were born from eggs. While Lux thought about these things, another question came to his mind. So, will Valerie and Aurelia give birth to eggs first? Lux thought. Then those eggs will need to be hatched before my kids can appear in this world. I wonder if they will return to their dragon forms when they are about to give birth. Things just got a bit complicated. Lux scratched his head. The more he thought in this direction, the more he realized that he had completely forgotten that his draconic lovers were only taking human forms. I guess I should ask them more about this when I bring Mother to the guild headquarters. Lux sighed. In the end, he decided to talk to his dragon lovers in private and ask them a few things that he hadn't thought about in the past. When Ari heard his questions, she only chuckled and even asked Lux if he wanted to see her dragon form the next time they met. The half-elf readily agreed to Ari's proposal. Valerie, Aurelia, and Ollie, on the other hand, were quite happy that Lux was finally trying to know their race seriously. When he asked them if it was possible for them to really get pregnant with his seed, all four of them said yes in a heartbeat. Lux, we would not really consider you a lover if you didn't have the ability to make us conceive your child, Aurelia said in a serious tone. The mere fact that we hold attraction to you is enough proof that you have what it takes to get us pregnant. Although you might not know this, we can sense dragon blood inside your body. It's not ordinary dragon blood, but a very powerful one. Also, your body could also transform into a dragon if you truly wished for it. This is a fact. Aurelia is right, Lux, Valerie commented. Dragons can only be attracted to a fellow dragon. Although you are indeed a half-elf, you seem to have a dragon's constitution. If I think about it rationally, this is completely unheard of. Are you sure you are really a half-elf? I am, Lux replied. But it's true that I'm not an ordinary half-elf. You see, I ingested dragon's blood in the past. Lux explained what had happened inside Kyoza's dungeon in the past, letting his lovers know something that they didn't know before. Aurelia, on the other hand, listened to his words seriously. She remained quiet from start to finish as if she was deep in thoughts. When will you go to the guild headquarters? Ari asked. I want to see mother-in-law already. Soon, Lux replied. We'll be there after I introduce Mother to my stepfather, Iris and Kai. At the latest, we'll be back in a week or two. That's fine, Valerie commented. Father and Mother will not let me leave soon. Waiting a week or two is better. Also, I can use the excuse of talking to Aurelia in order to strengthen the ties of both our kingdoms as a diplomatic visit. I'm sure I will get their permission if I say that. Good, Lux said softly. I missed all of you, and I want to see you girls soon. Right at that moment, a seductive beauty landed beside Lux and laid on top of him before giving him a kiss on the lips. Grandma Vera has prepared lunch, Aurora said. Time to go back. Okay, Lux replied. He didn't notice how much time had passed because he was enjoying his talk with his lovers. But he also wanted to spend time with his grandma and mother, so he bid his dragon lovers goodbye for now and headed home where his family was waiting for him, somewhere in the Skystead Alliance. The fourth prince of the Ashina Kingdom, Prince Lionel, grinned ear to ear as he looked at the pretty young ladies who were captured by his subordinates. They were taken from the merchant caravan that they had ambushed a few hours ago. After he had been exiled by his father from the Ashina Kingdom, he and his escorts had lived as bandits on the border between the Ashina Kingdom and their neighboring kingdoms. In truth, even though he had been exiled, he was still receiving support from his father. This provided him with enough resources to become a bandit leader terrorizing their neighbors from the Zinner War Pact. The reason why he was exiled was due to the incident that happened more than a year ago. He and his men had sensed a great fluctuation while they were traveling together and found the entrance of the Forbidden Domain. This was where he and his men had ambushed Lux, Iris, Kai, and the rest of the members of the young generation who hailed from the Six Kingdoms. That incident triggered a series of events that made the Skystad Alliance and the Zinner War Pact aware that the Six Kingdoms were monopolizing the hidden domain in order to gather resources behind their backs. If it weren't for Vera's timely assistance, things might have gotten out of hand, allowing Prince Lionel to have his way with Iris, Henrietta, and the rest of the ladies who belonged to the Six Kingdoms. Prince Lionel had always been a womanizer, and he wanted nothing more than to conquer beautiful women and add them to his trophies. But after that incident, an enraged Alexander and Maximilian trampled the capital city of the Ashina Kingdom, forcing the Skystad Alliance to step in and mediate the matter. The king of the Ashina Kingdom was forced to accept his losses and even had to exile his own son from his kingdom. Alexander and Maximilian wanted to kill the prince, but they knew that this would not be the best course of action to take. They were the leaders of their own people, and they had responsibilities to bear on their shoulders. If they really offended the Skystad Alliance, this would mean war. That would have forced the Zinner War Pact to take action as well. This would only sour the relationship between the Zinner War Pact and the Six Kingdoms, so the two saints decided to compromise for the sake of their people. Good. Bring them all inside the cave, Prince Lionel said. You guys know the drill. Make sure to not disturb me unless it is absolutely important, okay? Yes, boss. Boss, after you're done, it will be our turn, right? Boss, I call dibs on that girl wearing red. Her body is so hot. Feel free to enjoy her first, so I can take my turn next. You bastard. Trying to get ahead of us, huh? Prince Lionel only smiled as he listened to the bickering of his subordinates. He was truly in a good mood because it was very rare for him and his men to capture so many pretty ladies in one day. But when his gaze landed on his right-hand man, he sighed because he knew that he had to share his spoils with this person. Esmond, the ranker who personally safeguarded the prince, only smiled from the side. Unlike their subordinates who had to wait for second-hand goods to be handed over to them, he had the authority to take a few ladies with him to sample for himself. Although Prince Lionel was reluctant to share his spoil with his personal bodyguard, he had no choice but to allow it since Esmond was his strongest protector at the moment. After dividing the ladies, he ordered his men to bring his women to the cave, which they happily agreed to do. Prince Lionel then walked towards the cave with a smile. Although the number of the beauties he was going to embrace had decreased, they were still enough to satisfy him for an entire day. But just as he was about to enter the entrance of the cave, a blob of water hit the back of his head, drenching his entire body. Who dares? Prince Lionel shouted as he turned around to look for the person who dared to play a prank on him. The bandits, who were still in the camp, looked at him in surprise after hearing him shout. But seeing that their prince was drenched in water from head to toe, they immediately knew that something was wrong. No one in the camp would do such a thing. If they did that, their heads were going to roll off their bodies. Prince Lionel scanned the surroundings with bloodshot eyes until his gaze landed on something small and blue standing on top of the box of crates that they had looted from the merchant caravan. The fourth prince of the Ashina Kingdom glared at the baby slime and raised his hand to conjure a fireball. A weak creature that dared to humiliate him in front of his men was something that he wouldn't tolerate. Die! Prince Lionel hurled the fireball at the baby slime, not caring if the merchant crates would be affected by the explosion of his spell. The baby slime looked at the fireball in disdain before opening her mouth. A moment later, she unleashed a torrent of water that completely devoured the fireball, instantly dispelling it. The attack didn't stop there and slammed into the body of the lustful exiled prince, making him shout in pain as he slammed against the wall of the cave. It was at that moment when Esmond suddenly appeared on the scene to investigate what was happening. He had heard Prince Lionel's shout of pain, which made him wonder if one of the young ladies that they had captured suddenly attacked his master. But the moment he laid his eyes on the baby slime on top of the crate, he recalled a distant memory that happened more than a year ago. Impossible, Esmond thought. It might be another baby slime. The ranker remembered that on the day that he had tried to capture Iris, Henrietta, and the rest of the young men and women of the Six Kingdoms, there was a baby slime who had tried to get in the way. Naturally, he dealt with the weak monster like any ranker would and killed it without any shred of mercy. When Aiko's gaze landed on Esmond, the baby slime narrowed her eyes as she summoned a blast bomb. How could she possibly forget what Esmond looked like? Aside from Prince Lionel, Esmond was on the list of people that Aiko hated the most. This human had killed her when she was weak and powerless. Now, things had changed. She was no longer the same baby slime whom the rancor had easily killed after she did her best to protect her mama from those who wished her harm. Aiko's body glowed brightly as she transformed into a little girl, still holding a blast bomb in her hand. When Esmond and his subordinates laid their eyes on her, they couldn't help but be charmed due to how cute she was. "Not bad," Esmond said as he gazed at the adorable girl who was holding some sort of bomb in her right hand. "You will fetch a good price on the black market. I'm sure that there will be plenty of buyers who would want to raise a small beauty like you." The corner of Aiko's lips curled up into a smirk, as if what she was hearing was a very amusing thing. The smirk on her face slowly transformed into a sneer. She had come to find these people to have her revenge. Now that she finally found them, she would not allow any of them to escape since she intended to blow all of them to Kingdom Come. Aiko casually tossed the blast bomb in her right hand towards the rancor who had killed her in the past before opening her adorable mouth. F***Ker. A few seconds later, an earth-shaking explosion rocked the land, making Prince Lionel, Esmond, and the bandits who were in the vicinity scream in pain as blazing flames engulfed their camp. Aiko had no intention of letting them die easily. She would torture them and make them feel the same pain that she had felt more than a year ago. The pain that hurt her small and innocent heart when she looked at her mama's crying face before her small and delicate body exploded into countless pieces a lifetime ago. "Damn it, she's toying with us." Prince Lionel cursed out loud as he looked behind him. Esmond had saved him from their burning camp and hurriedly used a flying treasure in order to escape. However, no matter how fast the flying treasure was, the little girl with long blue hair was hot on their trail, with a devilish smile on her adorable face. Their men had already been burned to cinders back in their camp, and no one was left alive. However, Aiko made sure that their treasures and their prisoners were perfectly safe, after summoning dreadnought-ranked slime monsters to protect them from harm. "Are you sure that she's that slime you killed long ago?" Prince Lionel asked. "Why is she still alive then? Also, why can she transform into a human form?" "Shut up," Esmond shouted, making the prince stop asking more questions. Prince Lionel knew that his right-hand man was also shaken after seeing that the baby slime he had killed had come back to life, and was now after his own life. It had been more than a year since then, and due to the resources that the king of the Ahina kingdom had given him in secret, he had already stepped into the realm of an A-ranker. However, even with his newfound strength, his instinct was telling him that he wasn't a match against the little girl, who was looking at him as if she was already looking at a dead person. He and Prince Lionel had suffered third-degree burns, but due to the healing potions they used, they were able to endure the pain, at least for the time being. An hour later, the prince was no longer able to hold back and voiced out his concern. "How long should we run from this monster?" Prince Lionel almost shouted. "Didn't I tell you to shut up?" Esmond growled. "I've already contacted your father, and the saints of our kingdom are on their way to meet us. Just stay put and stop annoying me." After hearing that saints were already dispatched to help them, the prince felt less anxious and even forgave Esmond for his rudeness. Light symbol. Half an hour later, they sensed two powerful presents headed in their direction, making their hearts skip a beat. "They're finally here," Esmond thought as he saw two black specks over the horizon that were flying towards them. Prince Lionel breathed a sigh of relief in his heart before turning back to sneer at the little girl, who was still following behind them. "Let's see if you can keep smiling later." Prince Lionel sneered. "I'll make sure to torture you until you wish you were dead." Aiko, who also sensed the appearance of two saints, wasn't fazed. In fact, the moment she realized that two powerful presences had appeared in front of her, the devilish smile on her face widened. Esmond's flying artifact hovered beside the two saints, who were looking at him and the prince with disdain. "Useless fools," one of the saints shouted. "Why are you always causing us trouble? Sometimes I wish that Maximilian and Alexander really had killed the two of you," the other saint commented. "That way, we would no longer have to clean up your messes for you." The reason why two saints were dispatched instead of one was because the king of the Ashina kingdom didn't want to take any chances. He was worried that this was a ploy made by Alexander and Maximilian to finally settle the old score for his son's attempt to kidnap their daughter and granddaughter. But when the two saints looked at the little girl in the distance, who was hovering in the air with her hands on her waist, both of them frowned. "You called us because of her?" The saint pointed at Eiko with a dumbfounded look on his face. "You can't even beat up a little girl?" "Don't be fooled by her looks, Your Excellency," Esmond replied. "She's a slime monster and, judging from her strength, she's at least at the initial stages of the Empyrean rank." /N. Empyrean is the next stage after Dreadnought. Calamity is the rank above Empyrean. The saint scoffed before eyeing the little girl, who was looking back at them with a smile. "A slime monster?" The saint looked at Eiko from head to toe. Even if slime monsters can transform into humans, their age reflects their appearance. Judging by her looks, she's still young, not even 5 years old. You're telling me that a slime, who is less than 5 years old, is an Empyrean-ranked monster? The other saint, who was also observing Eiko, narrowed his eyes. "She is indeed of the Empyrean rank," the other saint commented. "Goodness, this is the first time I'm seeing something like this. Is she perhaps a mutant?" "The possibility is high. We should probably capture her and do some experiments." After confirming Eiko's rank, the two saints no longer treated her as an ordinary monster and prepared to strike. However, before they could even attack her, a black coffin appeared above her head and opened its lid. "Him and him." Eiko pointed at the two saints. "Beat them up." She then pointed her finger at Esmond and Prince Lionel. "Him and him capture," Eiko ordered. A moment later, the two saints, who were about to attack Eiko, felt 3 extremely powerful presences that came from the black coffin. When their gazes landed on the 3 people that came out of the coffin, the two saints almost pissed their pants. There were only 2 beings in this world that could make them react this way. The first one was demigods. The second one was supremes. Right now, there were not 1, not 2, but 3 supremes looking at them with calm expressions on their faces. They knew then and there that they were facing a little girl that they shouldn't offend no matter what. "Why, Your Excellencies, there must be some kind of misunderstanding here," one of the saints shouted. "We are not affiliated with these 2 people. They are exiles from our kingdom, and we have no obligations to help them." "That's right," the other saint backed his comrade. "We are simply here to ensure that they don't trespass on our borders, since they were already exiled from the Ashina kingdom." Eiko smiled sweetly after hearing the name of the kingdom that she now planned to destroy. Ashina kingdom? Eiko looked at the saint who had spoken the name of the kingdom where Prince Lionel belonged. "Thank you." The saint thought that he was now spared from harm after Eiko thanked him. However, what she said next made his face turn pale from fright. "Beat them up until half dead," Eiko ordered. "Those 2, capture." "Yes, Your Highness." The 3 Supremes immediately took action and captured the people that their mistress wanted to capture. Eiko then summoned the golden anchor and smashed it against Esmond's legs, breaking his bones. She did the same to Prince Lionel's legs, making the lustful prince scream in horror and pain. After crippling the 2 people she wanted to torture the most, Eiko grabbed their heads and slammed them into the ground. As if finding it amusing, she repeatedly smashed Esmond's face on the ground until it turned bloody. She did the same thing to Prince Lionel, breaking all of his teeth in the process. A moment later, she raised her foot with a sinister glint in her eyes. F***Cur. Without an ounce of hesitation, Eiko stomped down on the prince's family jewels, making the latter utter a blood-curdling scream that made Esmond, the 3 Supremes, and the 2 saints shudder uncontrollably. All of them were men, so seeing this scene had a great impact on them. A patch of red emerged from the prince's pants as his genitals were crushed by Eiko's foot. She did the same to Esmond, making the high ranker regret the day that he had killed this devilish monster who had come to take revenge upon him. Eiko tortured the 2 people until both of them begged for their lives. Of course, she didn't kill them right away. Instead, she summoned her battleship, Poseidon, and tied them to the bow of the ship. She then made the two saints cough up the information about where the Ashina kingdom was. After knowing its location, she ordered Avery to set sail to the Ashina kingdom, a kingdom that would soon cease to exist. The castle of the Ashina kingdom burned in a sea of flames under Aiko's indifferent gaze. Unlike her papa, she was someone that wouldn't bat an eye when it came to destroying an entire kingdom and its people. She was a monster, and it was in her nature to be merciless. However, since she was raised by Lux and Iris, she still had a bit of compassion left in her. But, at the end of the day, she wasn't as compassionate as her papa. After capturing the king and slaughtering him in front of the Prince Lionel, Aiko proceeded to exterminate his entire bloodline. Poseidon also bombarded the city with its blazing cannonballs, turning anything they hit into a blazing inferno. They first started at the castle, then gradually made the fire spread. The spread of the flames wasn't that fast, because Poseidon deliberately controlled the scope of destruction that it was dealing to the city. It made sure that the people were able to evacuate from their homes before setting those homes ablaze. Black smoke rose towards the sky, alerting the neighboring kingdoms of what was happening. Originally, they thought that the Zinner War Pact had decided to launch an invasion on their domain, catching them all by surprise. However, when they saw that there were no massive armies on the ground, they started to think that this was an attack done by saints. This wasn't the first time that saints attacked the territories under the Skystead Alliance. The most recent incident was when Alexander and Maximilian obliterated the capital city of the Ashina Kingdom. It had been a year since then, and the city had been rebuilt with the help of the best earth mages in the Skystead Alliance. On their way towards the Ashina Kingdom, they came across several saints from the Zinner War Pact. They thought that their initial hunch was correct. But before they could engage the invaders, the saints of the Zinner War Pact told them that they came to investigate what was happening in the Ashina Kingdom. Of course, the saints of the Skystead Alliance didn't trust them and forbade them from interfering with the matters of their alliance. This forced the saints from the Zinner War Pact to stop their investigation. With one problem out of the way, the saints of the Skystead Alliance headed towards the Ashina Kingdom at full speed. When they arrived at their destination, they noticed the giant bone ship that was hovering above the city and shooting its cannons at the ground. This enraged the saints, so they immediately started to attack the bone ship with the intention of completely destroying it. But none of their attacks managed to deal any damage to it. Poseidon was protected by a purple dome of light, covering its entirety. None of the attacks that had been unleashed in its direction even put a dent on the barrier, making the saints look at it with grim expressions on their faces. The baby slime wasn't pleased about the pesky insects that were getting in the way of her revenge. Because of this, she asked the three Supremes to deal with the saints from the Skystead Alliance. In Aiko's eyes, the Skystead Alliance and the Vahan Empire were one and the same. They were the people that bullied her papa when he was doing his best to create his guild in their territory. The baby slime was a vengeful little baby. Because of this, she treated the entire Skystead Alliance as her enemy. Of course, Blackfire was more than happy to lend a hand, so it summoned all of the saints that it had captured since it started to crazily gather powerful warriors under Lux's banner. The three Supremes were already enough to make the saints of the Skystead Alliance flee in fright. However, when countless saints appeared, the reinforcements who had come to help the Ashina Kingdom found it hard even to breathe. The pressure emitted by these warriors was simply overbearing. The surprising thing was that even the saints, who were patiently waiting on the border of the Zinner War Pact, felt this overpowering sense of dread wash over them like a tide. "Jay, just what is happening over there?" a skinny saint from the Zinner War Pact exclaimed. "Just who did the Skystead Alliance offend? Is it the dragons?" "It must be," another saint replied. "This dominating presence can only be released by Supremes and countless saints." "Should we go and see what is happening over there?" the saint asked. "If you want to die, then go on your own," a chubby saint scoffed. "Have you heard of the saying that curiosity killed the saint? Just stay put and don't interfere. If you annoy them, they might shift their anger to us when they are done with the Skystead Alliance." The saint who proposed they should take a look shuddered. If these powerful people really decide to invade their territory, he was certain that even if all of them fought to the death, the one who would lose would certainly be them. They couldn't afford to antagonize such an enemy, so they decided to wait until everything was over. Black fire zoomed across the skies of the Ashina kingdom, devouring saints left and right. Although not all the saints of the Ashina kingdom had come to investigate what was happening, it was still able to devour a dozen saints, making its trip worthwhile. A few hours later, Poseidon finally flew away from the destroyed city. Thick black flames were still rising up into the sky and could be seen for miles on end. When the saints that had been dispatched by Emperor Andreas arrived at the scene, the only thing they saw were miles of scorched land as evidence that a calamity had descended upon the Ashina kingdom. What they didn't know was that this calamity was currently making its way towards the Vahan Empire. Eiko stood on the top of the main mast of her ship and looked in front of her with a calm expression on her face. Prince Lionel's and Esmond's lifeless bodies were still hanging from the bow of her ship because she couldn't be bothered to deal with the two of them. Both of them had cried rivers of blood after personally seeing the destruction of their kingdom from start to finish. Eiko didn't give them a swift death. Instead, she ordered Poseidon to stick sharp spikes on their bodies from time to time, making them scream until they became hoarse from screaming. In the end, Eiko stopped caring because she had already done what she came to do. She understood that the moment she got her hands on Prince Lionel and Esmond, their deaths were a done deal. However, after torturing them for hours, she got bored of it, so she simply allowed nature to take its course. Now, she had set her sights on the Vahan Empire, in order to give them a little payback for her papa's and grandma's suffering back then. Blackfire very much approved of the baby slime's decisiveness. If only Asmodeus and Avernus were with Eiko, both of them would surely give the baby slime a thumbs up and even assist her in her revenge. Sadly, Lux's two diabolical subordinates were out of reach, so they weren't able to witness the path of destruction that Eiko was carving as she continued her adventure in Elysium. Emperor Andreas was busy paying close attention to the Finn kingdom because he was afraid that Lux would invade his empire due to the grudge he held long ago. Soon, he would realize that he was worrying about the wrong person. But who could blame him? How could he possibly know that the cute, harmless-looking baby slime, who was always perched on the half-elf's head, was now on her way to his kingdom with an army that would make him piss his pants? "It's nice to meet you, Mother," Iris said with a smile as she greeted Adeline, whom Lux and Vera had brought to Barbados Academy to meet the rest of their family. "I'm glad that I was able to meet you as well, Mother." Kai made a sign of greeting that was exclusive to the Rowan clan. "It's my pleasure to meet both of you," Adeline replied as she looked at the two beautiful ladies who were her son's fiancées. "I hope that we all get along well." Iris and Kai had long wanted to meet Adeline, and seeing her now, they could tell that she shared many similarities with their handsome fiancé, especially her eyes. Lux watched as the two beautiful ladies dragged his mom away, while giving him the "don't follow us, okay?" gaze, which made him scratch his head. Vera shook her head helplessly and followed behind them, leaving Lux and Aurora alone. "Aren't you going to go with them?" Lux asked Aurora, who remained by his side. Aurora shook her head. "I have been with your mother the longest. I think it's about time that Iris and Kai had some private time with her." The half-elf smiled as he gently pulled the beautiful young lady in his arms and kissed her cheek. "Then, let's go meet with father for a while," Lux said. "Although he is a bit stoic, he will be your father-in-law in the future, so we need to make him more familiar with you." Aurora nodded. "I will listen to you." The half-elf then held her hand and guided her towards the headmaster's office where Alexander usually stayed whenever he was in the academy. Currently, Alexander was busy managing the paperwork of the project that he and Maximilian had started in Elysium. The Barbados Academy and the Rowan tribe were currently developing the territory that they had secured a good distance from the Zinner War Pact. With the imminent fall of Solais, they needed to find a safe place for their people. Because of this, they decided to cultivate one of the least desired areas that even the Zinner War Pact hadn't bothered to set their sights on. The land was dry and arid, and crop production was nearly impossible. However, Alexander and Maximilian were confident that if their two factions worked together, it would only take them 2 to 3 years to make the place habitable. Also, With 2 saints serving as their town's guardian, the saints of the Zinner War Pact were hesitant to hamper their progress. They knew that even though they had greater numbers, they still didn't dare to provoke the 2 individuals who had once flattered the capital city of the Ashina kingdom. When Lux and Aurora arrived at the office, they found Alexander and Maximilian looking at a projection on the wall. A beautiful woman could be seen in the projection, and it was none other than Alicia, who served as Alexander's secretary. "Lux, come," Alexander said the moment Lux and Aurora had entered his office. "You have to see this." The half-elf obeyed and looked at the projection to see a grim-faced Alicia. "I just confirmed from one of our scouts that the capital city of the Ashina kingdom was completely destroyed," Alicia reported. "Also, all the members of the royal family have been killed, including the king. Currently, the saints of the Zinner War Pact, as well as our people, are investigating the cause of the incident. All of the evacuees, who managed to leave the city before it was burned down, said that a giant, floating, bone ship was responsible for the destruction of their capital city." "Bone ship?" Lux blinked. "A flying bone ship? Such a thing exists? Are you not able to do something like that, Lux?" Maximilian asked. Lux shook his head. "Unless the bones already have flying properties, I am unable to create a flying bone ship, especially a giant one. Originally, we thought that it was you because you are the only necromancer that we know of who has a grudge against the Ashina kingdom," Alicia commented. "Are you talking about the incident that happened in the entrance of the hidden domain a year ago?" Lux inquired. "Actually, I was also planning to give them a visit to have my revenge. But it seems that someone beat me to it." Alexander and Maximilian glanced at each other and smiled. They didn't hesitate to trample the capital city of the Ashina kingdom in the past, and frankly, if not for the fact that their relationship with the Zinner War Pact might become even more strained, they would have killed the members of the Ashina royal family then and there. No one was more than happy to see the wretched kingdom burn down in flames than Alexander and Maximilian. In fact, the first suspects of the Zinner War Pact as to who had caused this destruction were none other than Lux, Alexander, and Maximilian. However, none of the survivors saw any of them, especially Maximilian, who transformed into a giant black boar whenever he fought. "Then, do you have any idea who caused this?" Alexander asked Alicia. "No," Alicia replied. "The Ashina kingdom has many enemies because Prince Lionel has offended many people." "Did any of the survivors see anyone emerge from the ship?" Maximilian inquired. "Anything that can give us a clue as to what happened?" Alicia nodded. "Actually, we have made a startling discovery regarding this incident. According to a few of the high rankers that we interviewed, they saw an unbelievable sight. There were more than 100 saints that had appeared in the skies of the Ashina kingdom. They even said that there were at least 3 people who gave a more powerful presence than the saints. Although none of them dared to confirm it, I have a feeling that these presences that they felt belonged to Supremes." Alexander and Maximilian frowned after hearing the word Supremes. Although Supremes were non-existent within the 6 kingdoms, Zinner War Pact, and the Skystead Alliance, they had at least seen them from a distance when they were still traveling all over Elysium. Even so, the 2 of them found it hard to believe that Supremes actually visited their region to personally oversee the destruction of a kingdom. Also, the eyewitness reports of over 100 saints appearing over the skies of the now-destroyed kingdom made their frown deepen. There was only one explanation for this incident, and that was none other than an invasion. Invasion from stronger forces outside of the Zinner War Pact and the Skystead Alliance.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.